Are you or your child interested in the performing arts? Let me introduce you to the I Performing Arts program. This program, founded by actor, director, writer, entrepreneur, and Philadelphia native Nakia Dillard, provides high-quality performing arts training to youth and adults in a safe, fun, friendly online environment. Since its inception in 2009, ICANN Performing Arts has reached over 1,000 students and workshop participants in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area alone. ICANN Performing Arts founder, Nakia Dillard, has worked alongside some of the most recognized and influential names in the industry, such as Bill Duke, Jamie Foxx, Anthony Mackie, Wendell Pierce, Kerry Washington, and other notable performers. He has appeared in The Wire, Black Lightning, Law Abiding Citizens, and The Wonder Years. For more information about the ICANN Performing Arts program, please see the link in the show notes below. Thank you.
So I think the first thing is that we have to know and teach the difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. And so when you are self-employed, everything to do with the business tends to fall in your lap. You're responsible for everything. When I own those fitness facilities, everything from stocking to buying things to payroll, everything fell in my lap. And so when there was difficulty, everything rose or fell based on my ability and my own effort. And there's a quote that it's better to have, 1% of 100 people's effort than it is to have 100% of your own. And so that's a concept of business ownership that people really have to understand about putting together a team of people with different skill sets. So where I'm weak, I have someone else there who has a skill set and they're stronger in certain areas. And I think then you have the benefit of learning from other people, the benefit of innovation and strategy from other people. And I think those are the people that tend to be most successful in entrepreneurship, that understand that you cannot do it all by yourself because
Malik's First Job Podcast, here to answer any questions that y'all ask. Financial literacy and resources, parents and young people becoming bosses, CEOs, future leaders, entrepreneurs, conferences and boardrooms getting sponsors secured. If you want generational wealth, Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip with information to help. Malik's First Job Podcast, Malik's Podcast, Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip, Kerwin Phillip. Malik's First Job Podcast, Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip. Generational wealth.
Greetings, everyone. How you doing? This is Kerwin Phillip with another episode of the Malik's First Job Podcast, where we discuss leadership, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy for parents and teens. Today, I have a good friend of mine. We go back to the days of the great Morgan State University National Treasure, Miss Chrissy Thornton. She is the president and CEO of the Associated Black Charities in Maryland, right? So how you doing, Chrissy?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Good. I wanted to, I know there's like a long bio, right? But I said, you know what? I would much rather you tell people who you are and what you do.
Okay. So let's start at the beginning. I'm originally from New York. Born in Manhattan, raised in the Bronx, and I went to high school in the Mid-Hudson Valley, and I came to Baltimore in 1993 to go to Morgan State University. And so I can talk to you a little bit about my journey, but where I land now is as a nonprofit executive leader, brand new president and CEO for Associated Black Charities, which is such an opportunity and a blessing for me. And I'm able, throughout all of my experiences in this role, to really significantly impact the lives of people in the Black community, which is such an honor to be able to have impact and measurable change as we fight against structural racism and the impacts, the many impacts in many ways it has impacted Black people.
Yeah. So for those that aren't familiar with the Associated Black Charities, can you explain exactly what you all do?
Yes. So we are a nonprofit organization that started in 1985. We're a racial equity organization. And so all of our programming is meant to either support the elimination of structural and systemic racism and the barriers that's created by that institution, including the racial wealth gap, including addressing workplace discrimination, including addressing inequities in housing, in healthcare, and education, and certainly our flawed criminal justice system. And so all of the programming we offer is meant to serve as education, advocacy, support, and resources for the Black community. Our goal is that while we chip away at structural racism, that we provide tools and resources for Black people to succeed and thrive, and to learn how to navigate life among and amidst all of this racism that exists, that really creates so much disparity and has been generationally harmful for Black people, Black communities, and the Black family.
Right. So what would you say, because, there's so many different issues, I guess, under this racism, umbrella. What is like the biggest issue that you think exists right now amongst, African Americans, Black people within the United States right now?
So as a marginalized community, all of the issues are important. They all equally matter. They all equally deserve attention. But what we choose to focus on primarily is the racial wealth gap and the opportunities that we have to empower our communities economically. As most people would know, the amount of money you have and disposable income you have really determines everything. It determines where you live, what you're able to eat, where your children go to school. And, our belief is that as we improve financial literacy and economic empowerment in the Black community, we improve the economy overall for all people. And so we focus on that as a starting point, knowing that there's so many other ways that racism affects our community.
Right. And entrepreneurship is one of the avenues that many people look to pursue to help overcome this wealth gap that exists in this country. And I know that you have a history in entrepreneurship, right? So look, I've been following you for quite some time before you came into this particular role. So if you can kind of, I guess, explain like your journey into entrepreneurship, and also like when did you first get that bug of entrepreneurship as well?
So it's interesting. I have parents who were both civil servants who worked for the, either the municipality or state of New York, and they were 9-to-5 people. Like they believed in going to work, doing their job, coming home and being off from work. I can't tell you when it started, but I know I remember probably somewhere in middle school or high school, I knew that probably wouldn't be my path. First of all, I'm not a person that likes the monotony of doing the same thing every day. But also, listen, I like money. I have always liked money. And I always have equated like financial independence and money with my ability to make decisions for myself. And I was that child that I wanted to eat what I wanted to eat. I wanted to go where I wanted to go. I had all these dreams and I wanted to be able to chart my own course. And I quickly learned that it would take finances to be able to do that. And so if I had to define myself, I am a true hustler in the true sense of the word. So I went to Morgan State on a full academic scholarship. I didn't have to pay for anything. And probably 90% of the time that I was there, I had 3 and 4 jobs. I was hustling. I am the type of person that in order to start a business, I will learn a skill that I don't have. There have been times I was cutting hair, braiding hair, doing things I didn't even know how to do. I was just figuring it out on the fly because I have that hustler spirit. And then, that's something that has grown over time, over me being in the presence of a lot of mindset development and really understanding the power of entrepreneurship. And so as I graduated from Morgan and went out into the world of work, and I realized that there had to be more than going to work for 40 hours a week for a check that didn't last me from one check to the next. And so I, held on to the values of being an entrepreneur really for accomplishment, but also really because that hustler spirit and to have that extra income. So I can't imagine even remembering a time where I haven't had some sort of side hustle or side business or something that I was doing. Right. Initially, my goal was to retire myself by the time I was 30. I had this desire to not work for the man. I didn't want anybody telling me when to eat lunch and when to go to the bathroom and when I could take a vacation. And so I decided I wanted to retire by age 30. And when I was like 29 and 10 months, I ceremoniously walked off a job, and it was ceremoniously. Like I went in there and acted like a whole fool and quit the job to become a full-time entrepreneur. At that time, I had become a real estate investor in Baltimore area and was doing really, really well. It was lucrative. I had gotten into it during the bubble when people were making a lot of money. And so my first like formal endeavor was I purchased 2 Curves for Women fitness clubs. I purchased the first one in Brooklyn Park, Maryland, and it was a good investment. And I was there and realizing the challenges and the rewards of being a business owner, a sole proprietor.
Right.
And very shortly after that, I would say within 6 months or so, I bought the second club in Glen Burnie, Maryland, and I was doing well. I tell people I know what it's like to be broke, and I know what it's like to be balling, and everything in between. I was doing really, really well until I wasn't. And so my entrepreneurship story with that endeavor was that about a year into being very successful with those businesses, Planet Fitness came up, and they positioned a brand new club right in between my 2 clubs. And I couldn't compete with the margin of them charging $10 a month. But those kind of things and life lessons have never, ever, ever deterred me. I've always maintained like that hustler spirit, wanting to do more, have more for myself. When I became a mother, certainly have more for my children. I believe in having multiple streams of income. I believe in leaving something for the next generation and your children's children. And so from there, I mean, I can't even remember all the things. For a while, I was heavy into multi-level marketing, which I still very much believe in that. I've done everything from having virtual events. I had my own nonprofit at one point. I'm someone who can sell. Not a big fan of it today because I'm so busy, but I have that seller spirit. And so I've sold a bunch of things. If there was a business and an opportunity to sign up, I've likely signed up for it. I've done foreign exchange trading. I have done a lot of training and success coaching and consultation work, specifically helping nonprofit organizations kind of shore up their operations. And so, I have a hard time turning away from business opportunities. I'm drawn to them. I'm drawn to the ability to be innovative. And I'm drawn specifically in the Black community to teaching people a mindset other than just a job, because there's so much more to being able to, I think, control your destiny and what happens in your life when you have multiple streams of income and you have the opportunity to raise income, ultimately to invest and to start to capitalize on those assets.
Yes. So it's quite interesting. So let's kind of go back. You said that you set a goal to retire at age 30, right? And then at 29 and about 10 months is when you started to make that plan to get out of the regular 9 to 5. What was that like? Because you have a lot of people who say, you know what, I'm gonna walk off my job, and they never do it, right?
Yeah.
How were you able to do that? How did you put that plan together to say, you know what, at age 30, I'm out of here?
I just, was a little reckless. I'm going to say I still am a risk taker. So I'm not sure I completely evaluated all of the pros and cons in doing that. And I certainly probably wasn't at the stage of my life where it made sense to do that. I was single. Right. So I didn't have another income to make sure I was good at health benefits and those kind of things. I just knew I wanted to chart my own course, and I was courageous enough to like now or never type of thing. I am the type of person that I believe in kind of dying empty. So like giving life everything you have, utilizing all your skills, talents, and abilities to the best that you can, and not taking any of it to they say the graveyard is the richest place on earth, because people die and take with them all of these skills and talents and things that they had to offer. So what I tell people when I do training, I do a lot of training around cash flow. And what I tell people is that I didn't have the things in place that should have been in place when I decided to walk off, right? So you need mentorship. You need people who are smarter than you and who have done it before successfully in your ear to help guide you. You need to have the benefit of building a team in your entrepreneurship, as opposed to me. When I stepped out, I was independent. So everything that had to be done and taken care of, it all fell on me. And so I wasn't necessarily the most prepared. But I will say, as far as just kind of being courageous to pull the plug and do it, I think some people have challenges with that. right? It's scary. It's scary to kind of depend completely on yourself. And here I am now back in a job and have been for many years, but I also learned through that process the need for balance and the ability to work a job, right? To have what is perceived stability through a job, but then also to do things that I enjoy and to be an entrepreneur and have business ventures and investments and stuff in conjunction with that job, which I think for me is probably the right amount of balance.
Right, right. Now, you also mentioned that, the aspect of team or the importance of having a team as an entrepreneur. Now, you have many entrepreneurs out here that are flying solo, thinking, they got to wear all the hats, they have to do everything, and, and they get burnt out, right? So can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on the importance of having a team? And for those that may say, well, I don't have the resource to hire a team, how can I put a team together?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think the first thing is that we have to know and teach the difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. And so when you are self-employed, everything to do with the business tends to fall in your lap. You're responsible for everything. When I own those fitness facilities, everything from stocking to buying things to payroll, everything fell in my lap. And so when there was difficulty, everything rose or fell based on my ability and my own effort. And there's a quote that it's better to have, 1% of 100 people's effort than it is to have 100% of your own. And so that's a concept of business ownership that people really have to understand about putting together a team of people with different skill sets. So where I'm weak, I have someone else there who has a skill set and they're stronger in certain areas. And I think then you have the benefit of learning from other people, the benefit of innovation and strategy from other people. And I think those are the people that tend to be most successful in entrepreneurship, that understand that you cannot do it all by yourself because no one, where most of us are just one catastrophe or illness or problem away from not being able to function on any given day. And so when you don't have a team to shore up your efforts, it can be very difficult.
Yeah, yeah, right. Then also, how important is mindset, in the pursuit of entrepreneurship? I think, people often forget that that's like the first thing that you have to have in place is having the proper mindset to be able to take that leap of faith, to become an entrepreneur.
It's so important. It's essentially important. And I think even in my experience, like I didn't have parents that pushed me toward business ownership or the possibilities of entrepreneurship. I mean, because we're in a marginalized community already, that perceived stability of having a job is what we were raised to do. You were raised to go to school and get good grades and graduate and then work a job for 40 years and have the stability of a paycheck. And I think even in my family structure, a lot of the things that I've done in the form of business ownership and entrepreneurship scares people. And so that's not a mindset that was developed early on. And I think that we do a disservice to our children and our families by not talking about the opportunity to build businesses and to become affluent. We don't talk about in our community specifically about raising capital, being capitalists. We're a community that doesn't talk about that. And so when we talk about having a job, we teach our children, and I'm guilty of it too, that we have to go to work. And when we go to work, we get paid. When we don't, we don't. And then we have to wait every 2 weeks for someone to write the check that will help us, be stable in our lives. We don't teach the difference between signing the front of the check and signing the back of the check. Most of us will spend our lifetime signing the back of the check, completely dependent on someone else to pay our bills, to pay our health insurance, to decide what we can eat, to decide, how we move. And just the mindset development that is available. The only thing really separating people who are successful and wealthy and people who aren't is information. And we have to be willing to share that information to start to shift mindsets about what's possible. And when we start to look at what's possible, we can open the thought process that, our community, we are capable of stepping into entrepreneurship, of collaborating to do it, and to making that part of building a legacy so that the generation that comes after us doesn't have to work as hard as we did.
Right.
Malik's first job, Financial Principles for Teens, is an excellent resource to get your children started
on understanding the basics of financial literacy. This book, which is set in Brownsville, Brooklyn, about a young man who gets his first job and then shortly thereafter sits down with his dad to learn how to manage his money. There are several topics that are covered within this work, such as paying yourself first, disciplining your spending, knowing the difference between an asset and a liability, creating multiple sources of income, as well as the importance of being charitable. So again, if you want to get your children started on understanding finance and becoming responsible adults, we highly recommend that you purchase the book, Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens. So please visit maliksfirstjob.com to get more information. Peace.
Right. It's funny you mentioned, the I guess information and lack of information that we've had within our community. And me and I had several conversations with several of my friends about that. That the reason why a lot of us, within our community don't strive or don't know about the different opportunities because we haven't had access to the information that's been out there. It's like there were like gatekeepers that were withholding the information from us. But now that we're in the information age, those gatekeepers no longer exist, right? If you're serious about learning a particular skill or learning about a particular subject, you have YouTube, you have Google, you have TikTok, all these different social media platforms where you have access to information. The only thing that we have to do now is know how to process the information, because now it's like the floodgates have been opened. So there's so much information out there. Now you got to be able to know, okay, how do I take all of this that's being thrown at me and properly process it? Right? What is the best way, I guess, for someone that's pursuing an entrepreneurship endeavor, want to learn more about something? How do they filter all of this stuff that's being thrown out at them? Because there's some good information that's out there, and then there's some bad information that's out there. How do they filter all that information?
Yeah, I think it's all in mentorship. I mean, there's so many books available. There's so many podcasts available. There's so many learning opportunities to learn about entrepreneurship. What I have always done is latch on to people that I respect, whether they were in real life or in my fantasy life, of where I feel like Les Brown is my mentor because I followed him, or I've done a lot with Robert Kiyosaki, and I prescribe to the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, model of looking at cash flow and cash flow quadrants and all those things. So I think as you look to identify mentors who are teaching this stuff, you can kind of filter out, because the roadmap has already been provided. Like we see when we look up and we see so many people, we're one idea away from doing something exceptional, or knowing how to build big businesses, or knowing how to create organizations that are super successful. I think the roadmap is there. I think it's also important to have mentors in real life. A lot of times when you're entrepreneurial, you may not have the support of the people in your immediate circle, and you may not have the support of your family. People like to put the limitations on you that they have for their own lives. And because they may not be able to start a business, or they may not be able to delve into something new, they'll tell you that you can't either. And so you have to level up sometimes out of those circles and surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do. I had a mentor tell me once, don't take advice from people whose life you don't want. So you have to find people who are successfully doing what it is that you want to do, and figure out how to latch onto them or follow them, or, look at them as a guide, because that's where you can find the most credible information.
Right. So what happened after, Curve, right?
Oh,
so
God. Oh, I got a story. Yeah. So, I purchased those clubs in the resale era. So that means that most of the money that had been made was already made. So I was stuck in a situation where that just didn't work out for me. And I ended up going back to work. And I parlayed that time into this new nonprofit executive leadership career. So I went right from that to working for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And since then have had this trajectory in nonprofit management. But even in that, found opportunities to innovate, right? To do consulting work, to help other organizations with fundraising plans. I was doing so much consulting around development, how to raise funds, how to create fundraising plans for organizations, that I did write a book. It's been about like 10, 13 years now that I wrote that book, Stop Scrambling, Start Bringing Home the Bacon. And it's a fundraising guide for nonprofit organizations. If I had my time the way I want, I would write 10 more books, because those kind of things are how you start to, brand yourself, as someone who, is not just doing the work, but is willing to teach other people to fish, which I think is really important and really part of who I have become in my entrepreneurship. In 2018, I started an organization called My Girl Power Matters. And the premier offering of that was a discussion series that I did on Facebook Live weekly that was intended to help women in particular to live their best lives, to talk about things that we don't talk about, taboo subjects, to start to identify obstacles that women had in being successful. And what I found in doing that was I had more men viewers in many cases than women. And I found that, sometimes there's power in training. And I found that as kind of being my new lane of entrepreneurship, and a way that I could do what I do professionally in my job, but also use that same skill set to, with that hustler spirit, to make something of it on the side as well. So throughout the pandemic, I did virtual events. I did a lot of, we call them Girl Power Happy Hours on Zoom events that offered a lot of self-development and personal and professional development for participants. And then after that, I did actual virtual events where I was leading, for profit, to people who felt isolated and wanted to use those opportunities to learn new skill sets and to be connected with other people. And all of those things kind of led me to where I am now with the new position at Associated Black Charities, where I've kind of put a little bit of a pause, but not fully, because what I would tell you is once you start as an entrepreneur and you really, like you said, you get bitten by that bug, you never really fully can let go of it. So I got a whole Etsy store that's creating residual income for me on the side that I don't even promote, because that thing is just running on its own. It's a print on demand company. I put some products up and, cha-ching every time I get an email. And that's working for me now that I'm time crunched and can't do as much as I want to do.
Wow. So you're really putting that, you speak about that cash flow quadrant, having that residual income that comes in, while you're not, you don't have to physically work that position, but that's some cash flow coming in while you're sleeping or while you're doing something else.
Yeah. And what people don't know and what they don't tell us when we're younger is that rich people don't live off of what they earn. They live off of the interest, and they reinvest what they earn, right? And so our communities have been so left out that we don't know, like credit was invented for business ownership, not for Jordans and red bottoms and jeans and those kind of things. It was invented to help put you in a position to capitalize on and to build assets. And so a lot of times, even when we're successful in business, we don't have the mentorship to even tell us what to do. We get a little bit of money and don't know how to make that, maximize that to put us at the next level. And what I know is that when you look around, people are investing, right, in stocks and bonds. People are investing in gold and silver. People are doing foreign exchange. People are buying oil wells. Now, I have never been to that level, but I'm like, put me on. When I see that, I'm like, put me on. So it's really about our willingness to learn, and then also to share with others as we learn some of this possibility that exists around money, entrepreneurship, and investment. I mean, the whole point of being an entrepreneur, other than innovating, solving problems, having social impact, should be to generate revenue. And then what do you do with that revenue? You have to figure out how to make it compound into more revenue.
Right. Now, how do we pour this information to our children?
Right. So we have to create vehicles to disseminate the information. And so that's through like Malik's First Job, the book series, and the work that you're doing. At Associated Black Charities, we have what we call an ABC Academy, where we're doing financial literacy. We've been doing it for years for adults. And just now we're partnering with Malik's First Job and you to deliver this information to children in their teenage years, 12 to 16. Because if we don't start to change the narrative about how money should move in our communities and how we should be positioning ourselves to be competitive in all spaces, and we're going to continue to struggle as a community. Because here's what I know also: when Black people in communities and in Black families are successful, they tend not to, not always, but they tend not to be surrounded by a plethora of other successful people. In many cases, we have to pay what's called the Black tax, which means that I've made it and now I have to support everybody around me. I have to help my family members. I have to help my community because we're not bringing everybody along at the same pace. And so we have an obligation to get this information however we can, whether it's through free programming, whether it's through partnering and collaborating with community programming that already exists or the school system, to get this information into the hands of the next generation. I'm a believer in them not working as hard as we've had to make it. And so we have to educate and be willing to teach other people what we know.
Right. Each one teach one, as the
okay.
Goes. right. So what's next for Chrissy Thornton?
Yeah, so I'm always focused on having impact. I will tell you, you heard me say, I'm from the Bronx, but I went to high school in the Mid-Hudson Valley. It was a high school that was very much they called it a hotbed of tension and white supremacy and, 1,600 students, and there were like 33 of color. And so I grew up in an environment where I knew impacting the Black community was important. Creating opportunities for Black people was going to be important. That racism would have a hand in probably, my whole life's journey, as it has. And so now, being an associated Black Charities, I feel so blessed to be positioned to have major impact for our communities on a number of fronts, through financial literacy, through economic empowerment, but also through, sharing mentorship, peer and professional mentoring and career mentoring, so that we can help people navigate the effects of racism a little bit better. It's been a lifelong journey for me. I came from that environment to Baltimore and to Morgan State University. And so one of the things I pride myself on is being able to kind of survive and thrive in different communities and bring a voice that some people find confrontational, but because I have an entree into several communities, being able to really make a difference. And so I want my living to not be in vain, whether that's through my businesses, whether that's through who I'm able to have impact on. And I would like to do as much as I can while I can to bring positive change specifically to communities of color.
Beautiful. And I know you mentioned your book. What's the name of that book that you have for nonprofits again?
Yes, it's Stop Scrambling, Start Bringing Home the Bacon. It's on Amazon. It is a fundraising guide for nonprofit organizations to develop a sustainable fundraising plan.
Okay, great. Now, for people that want to reach out to you, get in contact with you, and learn more about what you do, where can they find you online?
Yes, so I'm on all the major things. I don't use Twitter that much, but I'm on LinkedIn, and I have a Facebook page, Chrissy Thornton Success Coach, and then my website is where you can get really connect to me, www.chrissythornton.com. Okay,
great. So I know you're a very busy lady, and I appreciate you taking this time out to speak with my audience, share, your wisdom. So, any closing thoughts that you want to share before you wrap up?
No, I just want to say that I feel so grateful to be connected to you. You never know where life will bring you full circle and who you will meet on your path and where your efforts will align. You know what I'm saying? Like, we met in 1993, I believe, right. At Morgan State University. And here we are so many years later, poised to do great things together, poised to impact our community, poised to empower other people, and to use the blessings and the gifts that we both have collaboratively to push some progress forward. So I'm grateful for you, proud of you. And I hope to see other people connect to collaborate like we've decided to do, because I think when we do that, we become stronger and more powerful in our mission to help communities do better.
Yes. One thing I want to share before you wrap up is that, back when we was in school, we knew each other, but we didn't necessarily hang out together, right? We were both accounting majors. We had classes together.
You were an accounting major. I was a sociology major.
Wait, hold up. But we had classes together, though.
We had classes together. I probably took a math class because I had to. I'm horrible with numbers. Yeah.
I could have swore you was an accounting major.
No, I was a sociology major. So that's why we're going to do great things, because you got the numbers and I got the, behaviors and the psychology and the people management on this side.
Okay.
We weren't in close connection, but yeah.
But yet, 30 years later, we're here working together. So you never know the relationships that you build in school or in the past, or the people that you come in contact with, how you all can later on connect and reconnect and be able to do something big and do something major. So, never burn any bridges,
That's right.
when you're, amongst your peers, you never know who you may work with in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. So again, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. And thank you all for tuning in to the Malik's First Job podcast. And we'll see you all next week. Peace.
Thank you.
Generational wealth.